Does anyone here ever think that given the environment that we're in, we're becoming a bit less soft? Basically, when you walk on the street and you see homeless people or people asking for money, don't you think we completely ignore their presence because we become so immune to all of it? But most importantly, don't you think that has had an impact subconsciously as well? Like we just feel less for the miseries around us these days. There are so many things to engage us. You have so many screens, your social media, online content, that we're becoming less and less connected to the actual world around us. The University of Michigan conducted a study of 14,000 of its students over 30 years, and they concluded that young adults today are 40% less empathetic than those of the 80s and the 90s. Now, why is that? And this can be chalked up to many things. But they call this generation the me generation. A generation so consumed with self-importance, competition, and individualism. And naturally, a growing emphasis on self will lead to a decreased emphasis on others. And they chalk it up to an evolved style of parenting, an increased emphasis on being successful rather than just building human connections, and obviously the current technological onslaught which I just mentioned. Now, the thing is that one great example of this symbol of lack of connectivity is when you use public transport, which I'm sure most of us have here. The one thing which you notice in people our age is headphones. You see everyone in the young generation wearing headphones, just being completely disconnected, either watching videos, movies, listening to music, or sometimes wearing them without any sound, just to seem busy and to avoid interaction. Now, I've used the Mumbai local trains quite a bit, and believe me, if you can master the art of traveling in the Mumbai local trains during peak hours, you can pretty much do anything in life. Thank God Superman flies, because if he would have ever had to use these trains, he would have hung his cape. But the thing is, I used to use it on a day-to-day basis, and I would notice thousands of people get on and off. And obviously people my age were always hooked in and zoned out. But then there were these older people. They would always be in groups. They would always chat. They would always save seats for each other. They would share food, share stories, play cards. And I found that so cool, that people had made connections just on the way to work and on the way home. Something which we were completely missing out on. And now you must be wondering, what am I getting to? What am I trying to say, and where am I going with this? The thing is that day by day, as human beings, we are becoming less and less human. We're losing the art of connecting with other people, and losing the one thing which actually makes us human. Empathy. We just can't connect with anyone anymore. The thing is, we're losing something which should come to us naturally. The art of empathy now takes effort. In fact, sometimes we use technology to connect with other people these days, because apparently face-to-face is too intimidating. The thing is, the reason I'm saying this is because being an empathetic person can be so good for you in more ways than you can imagine. It can help you in building relationships, having a conversation and interacting with someone, giving back to the world, going beyond your mental and physical boundaries, and at the end of the day, make you a happier person. And that's, I think, the great aim at the end of the day, right? I used to be a pretty awkward person, and that's why I'm saying all of this out of experience. I used to be insecure, underconfident, but over time, after I changed my perspective towards people and my attitude towards people and embraced being a more empathetic person, it helped me become more comfortable in my own skin, more secure, and more free in general. Now, being empathetic doesn't necessarily mean that you just have to feel everything. It's mainly for you to be very honest. It can greatly help you in building relationships. For example, I did my MBA 7 years ago in Spain, and that's some of it. Now, when most people approach a conversation with an agenda in mind, but you approach a conversation with the idea that you want to understand the other person and their background, you're likely to have a much more meaningful conversation than just going with your agenda and then moving out of it. Now, the MBA had 350 students with a 95% international student body. It was a melting pot in its true sense. And it would have been very easy for me to just stay in my own bubble with people of my own nationality, with my roommates and maybe my class, and then just get through the MBA. But that would have been an utter waste. So I put myself out there. I interacted with as many people as I could. I spoke to as many people as I could to understand their perspectives, their backgrounds, their stories. And I embraced all of it with a whole full heart. It turned out to be one of the best years of my life. It opened my mind so much. And I can say with confidence, I built some really long-lasting friendships there. And now I have a bed to sleep in almost any country you guys can think of traveling to. It just completely blew me away as to how little we know in general. So I must ask you, please take chances, go beyond your mental and physical boundaries, travel, meet as many people as you can, talk to as many people as you can. It'll really help you. It'll show you what you're capable of. Give time to yourself and to others. And that's the real value you will create. The one thing I also learned is that I'm pretty weird. I'm the one standing in the bottom and not smiling, and while everyone is just standing and being normal in the class picture. Anyway, one other thing which I learned was that the more you talk to people, the more you realize that everyone is struggling. Everyone is fighting their own demons. So it makes your personality more malleable to talk to anyone in the world, from people from any walks of life. And they would also become more receptive to you. Now, as mentioned, I started my NGO around 9 years ago. It's funded by me and managed by me. And the first projects which we took on was from my father's village where he grew up. They needed help with the girls' school. The assembly ground needed to be paved and built, and I happily took on the project. Now, the thing is that it took around 2 months and a few trips back and forth, but it was and still continues to be one of the most satisfying things I have ever done in my life. The warmth from the girls, the village elders, the parents of the students, it was extremely moving. It still continues to be with my heart and very close to me. And that is why I still continue to do something or the other whenever I can. Now, my point is that NGO is still alive. Now, we sponsor obviously run some sponsorships back in the same village. We sponsor around 15 to 20 kids across India based on different education levels. And we also run an education, vocational and hygiene program in villages in and around Delhi, NCR, for young women, just to make them more attuned to the modern techniques. And all of this just takes maybe 2 hours a week for me to manage. But the impact it creates is so immense that you can't believe. So what I'm trying to say is that, please, whoever you are, wherever you are, how much work you ever do, you can still always take time out to give back. The thing is that once you do something positive for somebody else without expecting anything in return, that will be one of the best feelings you have ever experienced. Now, being empathetic or just being aware of people around you can also greatly help you in people management. The thing is, it can make you a leader where people would actually respect you and want to follow you. Right after high school, I went to Tanzania in East Africa because my parents moved there. And eventually I started a career in public accounting and joined one of the big 4 accounting firms in their office in Tanzania. Now, I was one of the youngest associates they had ever hired, and I was a foreigner, and in a mainly African workforce of around 300, 350 people. So there was quite a lot of barriers which I had to go through before being taken seriously. And I soon started leading teams. Now, the thing is, I could have easily gone in as a foreigner and a manager and someone who just wants to extract work out of the team members, but I took a bit of a more human approach. I spoke with everyone individually, all of my team members, and asked them what they want out of each project. what they think should be done or should not be done, what are their weaknesses, their skill sets, and their perspective. I involved them in the decision making of the entire project and made sure I was always there to listen to their problems and solve those problems with them. And it worked wonders. I was able to get really high quality work from all of my team members, really high commitment levels. It took really not much of my time in a day to lift up my team members. And it was a highly steep learning curve, but having an empathetic approach really added value to my professional life, their professional life, and sometimes their personal lives as well. See, the thing is, if you're kind, you're the one who's building the environment around you where people want to be with you. It doesn't take much. If people were kinder, we would not need NGOs, actually. What's the point of having all these degrees from these great schools if when you walk on the street, you just call people uneducated rather than actually educating them, right? See, bit by bit, day by day, with every action, you're building the society which we live in. We are building the society that we live in. Look around you right now. Look around you today. If you look at the people next to you and smile, most probably you will get a smile back. That's how little effort it takes to actually spread positivity. We all are seeking happiness, but no one really gets how to get it. Harvard University has been conducting a study for 75 plus years over the exact same thing, what makes people happy. And their conclusion till now has been that the one thing which makes people happy over anything else is the quality of the human relationships. Not money, not fame, not financial or professional success, but human connection. Time is the most valuable resource you have in this day and age. So invest it in people. Invest it in your relationships rather than anything else. Rather than on screens or social media, for example. Meet people in real life rather than commenting on their statuses. That's the real value you'll create. Be generous with your time, your emotion, and maybe sometimes your money. You'll feel much lighter because otherwise you're just holding it all in. And I'd like to leave you with one thought. When was the last time you actually struck up a conversation with a complete stranger, either on a flight or on a train? When was the last time you actually passed a smile to someone in the elevator or just by passing by? And when was the last time you actually thought of helping someone less fortunate and actually did something about it? Thank you.